Joe, can you hear me?
But we want to be able to hear. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You can hear, we can't hear you.
Yeah, my mic.
Because that, I'm just gonna make sure you can hear them. So click that, the bottom one. Can you hear us, Joe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you say yes to us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, but you could hear us before too, right?
Yeah, we just
I
can't hear
could.
them. That
Could be a problem.
It is microphone, right?
Oh.
Just to make sure it works.
Hello?
Sometimes,
Is your volume up?
Zoom has its own, it
Yeah.
overrides the audio, you gotta click on the little arrow next to the microphone, make sure the audio is.
Oh, I see that mute. See the mute there?
Yeah.
Let's go to the last one. Yeah.
Yeah, that.
I think you guys just muted yourself.
So we can hear and we're just trying. Who's a panelist?
I mean, you want me just to log in on my computer? We can just use this.
Who's a panelist?
Justin Murphy says I'm also
Mr.
remote.
Murphy's
and-
on.
Yeah. So he can hear Joe, we just can't hear Joe. Thank you, Justin. Can you go to the panelists? There's two, that tab. Okay, so he's there and it's not muted there. Just double checking. Well, I think as long as the public can hear it in the recording. And then maybe he can text us what he wants to say as he's trying to say
We
it.
could just put him on the phone.
Yeah, or we can just put him on the phone.
Well, we don't have the other stuff. The public can't speak.
Oh, that's true. Oh, actually, let's see if we can promote another person in the public and see, promote Justin and see what happens.
It's laughing at Joe.
Okay, so he's a panelist now. Justin, can you try to speak? You're on mute
Hello.
and no.
Hello?
Thank you.
Is the speaker on the computer or the wherever?
Can you guys hear me?
Is there a volume setting on this actual thing? I don't know, I don't wanna break it.
Okay, so we can put Justin back in.
Can you guys hear me?
There we go.
Now we're working.
Can you guys hear me?
Can you hear Joe? 'Cause I can't hear.
I'm good.
Okay, so now we can go back to,
Yeah, I think Joe, you were the last attendee.
I'll,
so we can put, yeah, we can move
All right.
Justin back and then we can.
Oh, why is he?
Well, I'm your Board of Finance liaison if you want to keep me as a panelist.
Sure.
Okay,
It's up to you.
Here.
all right,
They,
Don't touch.
Don't touch anything at this point.
all right.
they sent me here to help with technology.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we're good.
Nice.
all right, gonna move on to item 2, pledge of allegiance. Everyone rise, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item 3, approval of minutes. We're gonna table that to our next meeting next Tuesday.
Yes, I moved to table.
I'll second.
All right. All
All
in
in
favor?
favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Joe.
Next Monday.
Next Monday, sorry. Next Monday. Today's Tuesday, right? Next Monday. All right. Item 3 of our special session, or sorry, item 4, chair comments. I don't have anything at this time. So I guess we'll move on to public comments. Any public comments? Anybody on?
Yes, there are 3 people on, no hands are raised.
Yeah, anybody wants to speak, raise your hand, nothing. Okay, public,
No?
okay.
All right. So I guess we'll move into new business for item 6. Update from the Academy Community Center Advisory Committee. Bill Saberford's in audience today. I just want to recognize you and your group's efforts to date, and we really appreciate the document you put together. There's awesome information in there. We all have a copy of it. We've all looked at it. Tom has gotten a copy, so he's incorporating that into his.
Okay, how many of you have picked up the printed copy?
I have to pick that up. Where is that?
It's right here, and I'm gonna give you one.
Perfect. I'll take that. I have the electronic one, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, actually, I'll take a look at that because I left mine on mine at home.
And, could I have that back when you're,
Oh,
when
yeah.
you finish, for sure?
Yeah.
John, do you have one at OPM? Printed one. Please take one, and do you guys have a printed copy?
I don't have a printed one right now.
Do now. Okay.
awesome.
I hope I only take about 5 minutes of your time.
Mhm.
I have a 6 o'clock trustees meeting at the library, which I'm not gonna make anyway, so. What I wanted to do is make a brief overview of this. To let you know, what kind of information is here and how you guys might put it to use now that you're approaching the design phase, the layout phase of this building. On page 1 is the cover letter, and there is the link to the digital copy. And as you'll see by the end of my brief presentation, there are advantages to referring to both the print copy and the digital copy. One of the main advantages of the digital copy, you'll see on page 3, which is the one with the large circles on it. On the printed copy, you see all of these hyperlinks listed, but of course you cannot access them. If you go on the town website to that copy, you will find a treasure trove of information which we have designed to be helpful to you. Under the first big blue bubble are the results of the survey, which we have already made available to you. Also, our conclusions and recommendations about the layout of the building. That came from our efforts to solicit the express preferences of the public for activities in the building. Under the second bubble, the purple one, we held Zoom focus groups with 3 different categories of activity groups. They were performing arts, studio art, and culinary cooking, all of which received very high ratings on the public survey. These are all in the top 5 preferred categories for activities. Under performing arts, we interviewed Long Wharf Theater, Madison Lyric Stage, Drawing Arts Alliance, Neighborhood Music School. You will find some very specific recommendations for building features that they are requesting. We did not guarantee anything to any group. We made it very clear that in your hands, as the building committee, you will consider structural issues and budgetary issues, and that will have a large sway in what gets included in this building. Under studio art, we interviewed Madison Art Society, Clinton Art Society, 2 potters, and Vista Life Innovations. Under studio arts, you will see specific recommendations for features in a studio art room. Tables, chairs, cabinets, storage, ventilation. It's all there. The studio art people are also very interested in gallery space and hanging features. Very specific information about what type of hanging features they prefer for paintings and drawings. That was a very popular item, believe it or not. About 700 people asked for pottery lessons. Well, if we do that, that means to include a pottery room with a kiln, which is, we'll have to find out the expense of that. And there are very specific recommendations for tables, chairs, flooring, ventilation, and it's all there for your consideration. Culinary arts, we interviewed local chefs, bakers, and a consultant who designs commercial kitchens. So there were very specific recommendations about features for the kitchen. And out of the 2,000 respondents, over 1,000 said they want cooking lessons. So that is a very high public preference. If we want to attract the teen population, Scott Cochran did a great job in reaching out to the teen population. There's a list there of the kind of features they're looking for in the building, and we think it's very important to attract this population. If you'll now turn towards the back, you'll see in living color are each of the 3 floors with every room designated. It's on page 11. Last week, one of your members asked, are the rooms in the building going to be numbered? Well, they already were. I don't know, Tom, if your numbering system is going to be the same as this, but using this numbering system of each of the levels, you will then come across an 11 by 17 fold out. Now, this is available on the digital version, but it's very hard to read online. I want to assure you folks, this is not a quick read. There's a lot of detailed information here that requires you to take some time to look through it. This is the creation of John Lamarand, our committee member. He went in and measured every room, and if you look carefully, room by room, last week, one of your members asked, are we gonna get room dimensions? Well, every room, the dimension, these are not technical measured, dimensions from an architect, but, they're very close to ballparks. Every room, if you go across the page, you'll see, up top, what it could potentially be used for, whether it's configurable or locked in, like the beach and rec room and the office and Madison Youth and Services. Those are, at least at the time of this printing, they were off limits for public use. And in the little, you'll see whether it's R, whether it potentially can generate revenue. And then the colors in the squares up top are the ratings on the public survey, so you can see which of these activities received the highest rating. If you'll take some time to review this, I think you'll find it extraordinarily valuable. We believe very strongly that on ribbon cutting day, if the public walks in there and says, hey, this isn't what we wanted, this is not what we asked for, then we're all going to be in trouble. So to the extent that we can incorporate the express preferences of the public and the requested features of the activity groups, that will increase the likelihood of a successful building. And in the final analysis, folks, this information does not recommend the personal preferences of the 9 members of the advisory committee. This is what the public wants, and we have an obligation to fulfill their express preferences. So we think this information is very important to integrate with all the other physical structural features in the budget that you guys are tasked with deciding. I think it would be great if our 2 committees could start working in conjunction with each other and an interchange of information, back and forth. Trust me when I tell you that every member of our committee recognizes the difference in the charge of our committee. We fully recognize that you guys have the task to make the final decisions, but we think it's critically important to incorporate this kind of information. So a quick review. Please take whatever time you need, and we're always available for questions and consultation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bill.
Any questions?
AJ, any questions?
Thank you very much.
The only question I have, oh, I found it, never mind. It starts on this page and then it goes to this page.
Yes,
So I
Yes,
was
the fall.
reading it the other, I'm going, where's the rest of the M's? And then I
It's
found
not an easy read.
That's okay.
It takes some time.
That's okay.
And again, I want to credit John Lamaran. He put this all together. And John is very willing to come before you and explain this in more detail if you would like.
Joe, do you have any questions?
I do not. I think
All right, thanks, Joe. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for taking
You're
the time
welcome.
out of your day to come over today. And,
Well, thank
You know,
for your time.
I mean, our special meeting today is to kind of see some draft concepts, some schematics that Tom's putting together. So this information being available to us as a group of
Mhm.
committee, you know.
And maybe in the next meeting, we can vote on like a timing for a joint meetings with the
I
advisory.
think that'd be a great idea.
Just some thoughts,
Mhm.
because since there is so much detail and there's, I think we're a bit of ahead of the game, from a starting point that we have all of this data, I would think, right? I'm asking the architects because I'm
Mhm.
thinking, there's a lot of data here. So hopefully this will work well in the schematic and then the reviews, and then obviously we'll do some public sessions as well, and it would be nice for the advisory committee to be joining us on those, I think, as well.
I think if we do plan to hold a public information session. I think that's important. At that meeting, I think it would be critically important for all of our both committees to be there for the public to see the spectrum of people involved with it.
Mhm, mhm, absolutely. Thank you for all this work.
Appreciate it. All right, anything else? We're all good. Thank you again, Bill.
Okay,
All right, so I guess we'll move into our other new business, QA&M. Tom's
Great.
here today to show us some draft, I guess, schematic design or what you put together to date for our review, and most likely we'll have some comments.
Awesome. So, first, I'd like to just introduce you to my team members. Mr. Brian Park, he's project architect. He'll be working on the project with us from start to finish. And Carolina Hernandez, project job captain, designer, jack of all trades.
The glue to the organization here.
And Carolina was actually with us at the interview, so you might remember her.
Yep.
Carolina has helped us from the very start of the project, and it's been a key team member in terms of doing the design. So great, Gene, thanks for putting this up. If you go to the next slide, that would be great. So here is the existing site plan, and you can see the building oriented north-south in the center of the page. Academy Street on the right and School Street directly below, with a sliver of space in between the Academy building and the adjacent Youth Family Services building. And then behind the Youth Family Services building is sort of the hodgepodge parking area. So from a site plan perspective, our concept site plan at this time,
Are you sharing the screen?
Am I not?
Yeah, I don't think so. Joe, I think can't see it. You just
Thank you.
texted me. Yeah, sorry, Tom.
yeah.
You gotta click the share button to the right. Okay, now you bring up the other thing that we were looking at.
It should be good.
There
You guys can see it now?
Got it. Thank you very much.
Yep.
So existing site plan, this is our proposed concept plan. This concept hasn't changed significantly since we originally proposed it. I've spent a lot of time recently trying to get our survey team engaged, but the concept is to, on the south side of the building or the bottom of the page, to move the parking area on School Street closer to Route 1 and allow an L-shaped outdoor patio space that connects the south entrance of the building to the proposed new entrance of the building, which is in the west corner. I will get up and point, but people online won't be able to see. So this is where the proposed new entrance to the building will be. And this is where the south entrance is. And the goal was to tie this into the master plan connection to downtown pedestrian connection. This outdoor patio or hardscape will have some softscape and planting, but will act as an outdoor activity space, meeting space, performing arts space. But more importantly, it's the connective walkway that will allow connection from the parking areas to the accessible entrance on the building. You can see as a part of this plan, it's our proposal to reconfigure the parking at the back of the site. So it's more structured parking. We looked at a couple different options, one that would maintain the basketball court, but we think its use as parking would better support the building because parking is at a premium for this facility. And then the play fields to the north would stay intact as they are. Our preliminary investigations indicate that the septic field is below the fields. And we've engaged our site civil engineer to do an analysis of the septic field. I'm secretly hoping that there's some capacity there, but it may require replacement.
So real quickly, if it does require replacement, that means the fields would have to be offline during that replacement? Okay, so if that does have to happen, then there might be a possibility to think about a reconfiguration of the fields if we're gonna have to dig them up anyway. So I'm just putting that out there in the back of the mind, considering that backstop is so close to the building.
There's always the possibility
Right.
to make those adjustments. But we have to also be sensitive to cost implications, and I will touch base. At the end of my presentation, I'll talk a little bit about cost and our preliminary investigation, what that has yielded. Next slide.
Can I just ask one last
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
Sorry.
Go back.
to last. And actually, since we have our beach and rec director here, should we be considering sliding the parking lot to the west and moving the playground closer to the building? It just seems to me we're gonna have kids walking through the parking lot trying to get to the playground.
You gotta ask me.
Yeah.
So that's why we have not, we have funding to replace the playground.
Mhm.
And that's why we haven't, began that project yet, just in case something like that would need to occur.
Yeah, because I don't, if we were to shift the whole parking lot to the west, right, we might have a plot of land for the,
That's a possibility if some of this parking moves there.
Yeah.
The playscape could get closer to the
Let's-
backstop, but I don't know if that's better or worse programmatically.
I mean, we might be able to extend the backstop there, but I mean, there's options.
So the playground now is at the bottom. Great.
Over here.
Yeah.
Over here.
Okay.
How many parking spots do you get out of this?
I didn't present, I don't have a full count. We just maximized what was available to us.
And we're not proposing having any street parking on Academy.
There is on-street parking there. I wasn't proposing reconfiguring Academy and changing it, so you can park along the sidewalk there. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Preventing that, but reconfiguring Academy Street was not something that I.
Yeah,
was
no, I didn't propose, I wasn't proposing that, just if you were counting the spaces on Academy, parallel parking spots.
Yeah, we haven't done a full parking count.
Yeah, I was just throwing comments out. That's
So, yeah, and from a parent standpoint, moving that closer to the building and closer to the backstop, even if we have to extend the fencing of the backstop, might be easier for somebody who's trying to watch Little League and somebody else who's on the playscape at once. I've had to do that, and it's a joy, I can tell you, when the kids are little.
Well, it gets them away from the T-ball teams that are next.
No, but
Go ahead.
moving the playground would also get it away from the roadway that goes directly to the west of it,
Mhm.
which, if you've ever driven on that road, it leads to the parking lot for the church.
Right.
You can't tell if a little kid is going to be running through there or not.
Right, it might be a safer issue.
Anyway, just.
So
for
something,
No.
to put in the back of my.
Feedback.
No, it's not. I don't think it's a bad idea. We'll take a look at that. From a team perspective, I'm again fearful there's cost implications to that. I know that Austin has monies to build a new playscape, but we'll look at.
Yeah.
The amount of, if I reconfigure this to here, I think that's viable. I don't know if we'll get as many parking spaces
You'll
here
lose
as
the
we
middle.
would get here. But it would put the playscape closer to the building. These accessible parking spots, which are directly to the entrance, those might have to be moved. But yeah, we can certainly.
Just take a peek.
Mhm.
Now, is that the entrance and exit, that allow two cars to go by, or is that narrow that only allow one car?
This is two-way travel here.
And then in and out of the parking lot as well as two-way?
That's correct.
Okay.
In 90-degree parking configuration, you need a full two-way drive aisle. You could, if you do a one-way drive aisle, we could do angled parking, but it's not as efficient. You don't get as many spaces in configuration.
Madison loves angled parking.
Oh.
I,
Well-
look, guys. I have a question on the parking lot or comment. While you're looking at it, I mean, there's one way in, one way out to the rear parking lot. Considering public use of the building, desire for classes, consider potential queuing cars for pickup and drop off. Just consider if that's enough space for queuing cars for pickup and drop off of people. And if we're going to create some kind of traffic jam in that parking lot and in the entrance itself.
That's a fair question, but I think you also have to look at this project from the perspective of we have existing space, existing infrastructure. And we're making this as good as we possibly can within the constraints of that space. So I could add, for instance, a queuing line or a drop-off line, but I might lose an entire row of parking. So. it's
Yeah, there
not
just might
me-
be some other possible way to do it, as if you have to rip up the leaching fields, redo grass, etc. Just keep that in mind, because that will be an issue picking up and dropping off.
I'm wondering, is there any need for buses too between schools and the community center to have?
Well, I'm assuming they would drop off on Academy like they did back in the day when the school was open, right? They'd probably get off and then walk around the building and in.
Would think so.
And certainly drop off could happen
In the
in
front.
this avenue.
I mean, I think that is probably makes better sense than trying to do it inside of that small parking lot there.
Yeah.
For sure.
But we may want to consider a walkway behind the building.
That's what I was thinking there.
Just about to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there's one there kind of now.
sort of a rear exit and a better walkway.
Good now.
Yeah, Tom, I just want to be clear, that plaza requires the removal of one of our buildings, is that correct?
That is not correct. This is the existing structure right here.
I'm not sitting close enough, thank you.
You could do a 180. Look on the other screen.
We did have a proposal. We did have a concept from someone that removed that building and put a roof
Right.
there.
Right,
Okay. I got it.
but I mean, that,
It probably even more.
I think that might be an historic building.
But I mean,
We
we,
want to be taking that down, because that could be used for other things.
yeah, I don't think we want to propose taking that down at this time. That,
No. Right.
Let's
Um,
throw some more cost in.
I really like this concept, by the way,
Mhm.
but I think just a couple things to keep in the back of your mind. When budget is concerned, we may want to consider leaving this in its current configuration. And, addressing it in an alternate option. So we'll present an alternate option for this,
Mhm.
as well as maybe an option to move the playscape and move the parking. To the west. It's hard to see because this is blocked out, but the roadway is over here. So, Gene, I don't know if you can
Can you move
move
that?
that window down to the bottom left.
Yeah, a lot of me.
Or just hit the little, you could hit the little
No, that's
line,
fine.
it'll. remove
which one?
When she hovers over it in the top left corner. there's a
Oh,
little-
yeah.
Oh, that
see
line,
line
minimize.
Way up there, yeah.
Should just.
There you go.
There we
All
go.
right, great. So you can see that, this is not as long as that. So if we move this over, that's good. But, I'm not sure what the yield of parking will be in this corner, and we've got some setback issues, but we'll take a look at that and see, what that can.
I definitely think we should look at that as an option.
Do we have limits on that top property line? If we do end up in a hypothetical where we move a field and there's additional capacity there. Are we allowed to encroach into that space, or do we have a hard line?
I don't know.
I
I
think-
know it's all
I'm
town
asking-
property.
Yeah, I'm asking.
However, I was told when I first pursued this project, don't go anywhere near those athletic fields, don't touch the athletic fields.
Yeah,
I think that all stemmed from the previous discussion on what was gonna be built there, which we're gonna have condos on the fields, and people that didn't understand that it could happen as a possibility,
Right.
and all heck broke loose.
So if we do have to do something with the septic system in the leaching fields. As long as there's two fields that end up there with the same program capability, correct me if I'm wrong there. That's okay, but we also would need to give Little League and softball and everybody else a heads up if this is gonna happen. So that they can plan well ahead of time for games and things like that. 'Cause we have in past
Yeah,
taken fields
As
offline.
long as there are two fields. And Austin, if
Yeah.
the fields were reoriented, so the backstop wasn't right there.
It does make a lot of sense
As long
to
as
do
there's
that.
two fields and you can play games on both of them at the same
Same
time.
time, that's the big thing, yep.
Yeah, moving the backstop to where the playground is now is a very good idea. But there's costs involved in moving that whole field, because you have a nice area over there in the corner for the playscape. Where the backstop is now. And at that point, maybe you could put a driveway behind the building and actually get access through. There's a lot of possibilities if you move that backstop.
I don't think I've brought the entire site satellite image. Could you go back one? I don't know, we can see the whole. No, we can't really see the whole picture because I believe the other field actually comes the other way.
No, they're next
No,
to each
they're
other.
next to each
They're,
other. The
they're,
backstop, yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's to the north.
Oh, okay.
So like right field, on that field and left field on the other one kind of abut each other.
Gotcha.
But I don't think there's high capacity as far as home runs go with the people that are playing on those fields.
I'm actually the VP of baseball for
So,
Little League.
yeah.
So yeah, we have our younger groups there. They started T-ball up to like 6 or 7-year-olds play there. The bigger kids just practice there. They don't play games, but we do have softball games on the other field. Even now.
Okay, no, those are all great ideas and we'll take a look at those site options. Potentially, roadway connection, potentially relocation of the backstop, I guess, to the kitty corner.
Well, especially Tom, if you're gonna dig up that infield area for a potential septic system, I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
you know
where
what I'm saying?
the
We don't,
septic
it's,
system
it's,
is yet,
it's
so-
not a grass infield there. It's just clay. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world to, move it.
And this is the VP, so we're,
No, I understand.
it's recorded, Austin, so we've got his.
No, Austin's group and our group work closely together.
Great. All right, well, let's move on to the building and these are good options for us to talk about.
Yep, go ahead.
So the building has 3 floors, lower level, main level, and upper level. And in all 3 of these schemes, well, you'll see is that this is where the proposed entrance is going to be. We're proposing to remove this classroom bay and create essentially a 3-story entrance foyer in that location at grade. So right now, the main level is about 6 feet, 5 feet above grade-ish. We're having the survey team identify that. We're gonna take all that down so that you enter at grade flush to a split level. And you go down half a level to the lower level, up half a level to the main level, and you would be able to get access to this pass-through elevator at the split level. So you would come in from grade, have access to the elevator, you can go down a half a level, up a half a level, or up a level and a half to get to the upper level of the building. At this lower level, we're proposing that everything in green would remain as community multifunction space. The courtyard itself at that level would be infilled because the floor of that is going to be now at the main level. There are 2 spaces which are crawl space. Based on our last meeting, we did some investigation of those spaces and we have some photos of it. It's very low space and it's maybe about 4 feet in total height. And it's off the floor about 6 feet. So to get into it, you have to go up 6 feet. So it's viable for mechanical services, but it's not really what we would call functional space. In the core of the building, beyond the courtyard on all 3 floors, we would be renovating this space to provide new bathrooms, accessible toilets, gender-specific toilets, or non-specific, non-gender, dedicated toilets, and bathroom, or family lavatories. And that would be stacked on 3 floors. It's currently stacked where the existing plumbing is gonna go. So we would have access to discharge. These community rooms would stay as multifunction space. And then where the existing kitchen space is, this space would be gutted. And we're proposing a new community commercial kitchen. That's configured in such a way that it can be used as a demonstration kitchen, a prep kitchen, a warming kitchen, or a catering kitchen. So it could be used for multifaceted functions. Across the community, there would be a fixed pantry space and then dedicated office or service space. On the north side of the building, I've got the plans turned just because they're configured long. This space underneath the gymnasium would become a multi-fitness exercise space. And then the space on the northwest end would be a community space. And then in the core, as I talked briefly about at the last presentation, this space would all be storage for the activity and recreation functions of the building. And a small portion of that may need to be captured for mechanical space for the geothermal wells, which will have to come into the building, probably on the north side of the building.
So I'm gonna make my same comment, that really needs to, I think, stay with Madison Youth and Family Services. We need the upper level to have more community space than is currently.
All right, I'm on that.
Yeah.
And this would stay as Madison Youth and Family Services
Okay.
for their large meeting and small meeting space. So, and I haven't gotten there
Okay.
yet, so don't jump down my
Okay.
throat yet. But, we'll get there, but I'm proposing a compromise solution, so wait till.
Tom,
we get
before
there.
we move on, that space that's connected to the kitchen, is that configured more for eating as well, like people could host?
This space here,
Yeah,
yes, so this would be.
a
sort
file or
of,
something, so you could easily clean that stove, that sort of thing.
So we see this as an entertaining space, so the flooring in the space would be. Sort of maybe a sheet product or a resinous product. It would be
Make it easy to
used for
clean,
food and clean.
not carpet or something, yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Good solution. We haven't really got into finishes yet. So we don't really know what we'd be thinking finish wise throughout the building.
Yeah, I didn't want to propose it, I just wanted to make sure that it's that obviously is the natural connection, right?
Yeah,
To host an event and use that space for that.
This would be that sort of the eating area, banquet type, not banquet, I don't like to use that word, but the. Communal hall.
Meal seating.
Meal seating,
Yeah,
fundraising meal seating.
exactly. And it's ideal space for it.
And are those new proposed emergency exits with seeing those outside stairwells?
Those are existing.
Exist?
Egress ways, yep. They are existing, I don't know what the right word for it is. It's not like a hatchway, but it's an areaway and there's access out of the lower level. And we will need that because it's an assembly space.
Yep.
The main level of the building, that's,
Before we move off.
yeah,
Lower level, I just want, on behalf of my custodial friends, is there a custodial, storage space and, mopsins, that sort of thing on every level?
so every floor will have a janitorial space and storage space in the core. And electrical, mechanical space in the core. Those will all be stacked, so all the services can be accessed. So this is the main level plan, and you can see that at grade access would be here. Come into the building and you'd be able to go up to the main level or down half a level to the lower level and have pass-through access to the elevator. When you come up to the main level, we would be infilling the courtyard at that level. And so that whole courtyard would become a two-story atrium space that is a cafe, soft seating and pre-function space. And that would be open to all of the adjacent corridors. So this would be a free-flowing, just seating space, which would be used for waiting. Ideally, a pre-function space for all of the activities in the building. To the north would be the gymnasium. The gymnasium would be refinished, and the stage would be refinished in its existing sort of configuration. You can imagine this as a new gymnasium space. All of the finish is new. The configuration of the space would remain the same, but you'd have new lighting, new basketball hoops, new flooring, and then same amenities for the stage. The stage would be the same configuration, but it would have, all new finishes, new proscenium, hopefully new curtains and finishes for it.
And there's space for bleachers, correct?
There is limited space for bleachers in here. That's something we would want to talk about. It's a relatively small gymnasium. We could have fold-out bleachers strategically located, but if we want to use the gym across court for like little children's activities or senior activities, then we have just enough room on the perimeter for benches or maybe like 2 tiers of benches. So it wouldn't have a lot of spectator seating. Standing room only, definitely. But that's a good question. Standing room on the stage, as well as overlook from above. Parents would be able to look down into the gymnasium.
That was a question I had. You plan on putting like windows in like the left side on that floor so people can just look through?
Over here?
No, the other side. Yeah, and
Right now, there are doors, we can add windows
I
there.
think it might be good for people to just look, especially if they're at the cafe, they can just sit in the seat and watch what's going on.
So I don't know if you visited Branford yet.
I have.
But we did that at Branford and it's really successful, but it creates some functional issues because the glass is there and the athletic players, get over by the entrance and it makes me a little nervous. So you can still put glass there, but you have to have barriers to it. I think architecturally it's wonderful, and if we can do that, I would love to do that. Maybe we'll add some glass in there. But we need to be careful about kind of where we do it. And again, we can change the locations of these entrances. These are the existing entrance locations.
So the fold out seating, I think that Joan may have brought up last meeting, on the bottom of your screen there, is there any opportunity to store them there and then fold them down? So in case you have something on the stage, you could use that, kind of leave you at hand.
Yes, we could do that. I didn't actually think about that from the stage's perspective, but
I
you
think
could
that-
do that.
Because I think that court isn't all the way against that outside wall now. I think that hoop is, more toward the middle, but is it close? We
Yeah,
could always move it, right? I mean, it's not a full size court anyway.
we can put it
Few feet.
wherever we want. We configure this as, we put a new court in here, kind of tried to maximize the court and center it in the gym. So it's a little more viable for sort of adult or teen functions, but we can certainly shorten the court and create more space at the bottom of the court. There's no reason.
That particular configuration that's in Daniel Pan does not require a lot of space for storage when it pulls out. It comes out
No, it's
quite a
like
bit.
2 feet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not a lot at all, which is,
It's actually really good.
it is.
I mean, I don't like the setup at all there, but
Yeah.
the seating's great.
I honestly, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea. I think we should do it. It only costs about 2 feet to the court itself, and then we can stack it on the side. We just have to see how it works with the existing windows, because. I don't know what
Covering them.
windows are on that side, but we'll be covering them. Are they higher?
Or the windows.
There's brick infill there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, we actually saw, in our research, I think it was the, Kittery Community Center, maybe in Maine. They did that, had a big open room and they had the seating stored on the outside, so the room was open and then they would just pull it down, for an events on the stage. They had like an at-grade stage and it wasn't elevated.
That's a very good idea. I think that
I like-
definitely be incorporated.
Yeah,
Just-
it,
yeah.
that was one last thing. So can this incorporate a couple pickleball courts inside too?
Yes,
Okay.
we can show that.
Stripe
show
it
the
for
lines on the
volleyball and
floor.
everything? Okay.
One of the challenges is the more striping we put on the floor, the more complicated the floor layout
See how
gets.
Branford is?
Yeah,
It's covered in colors.
it's almost a little too much,
Yeah.
but it's used in an immense fashion.
Right.
Well, I'll keep
Special
going.
about the cafe,
Yeah.
storage for things that the cafe would be utilizing.
So the cafe is just conceptual right now, but there would be a back bay of full height cabinets.
Okay.
And then there would be a front bar, so we should actually change the configuration of that. We haven't gotten to designing the specifics of the cafe itself. Millwork, but there would be storage across this back wall, which would all be millwork. And then there would be a sort of a bar island of some configuration. Now, there would be a sink in the back bar, but the idea is that this is not like a food preparation area. We might be able to put a dishwasher in there, but the goal is this is a multi-function sort of counter setup, so it could be used for lots of different things. And if someone has cupcakes and a coffee maker on it, great. If someone brings in cookies or slices of pizza during a basketball tournament, great. But the idea isn't that they're making sandwiches here,
Yeah.
it's more of like a service bar.
Right, and I think that's what was, down in Greenwich there.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and I think that,
They had like, do they have like coffee machines and stuff?
I think they have coffee machines and some things like that, and I talked to Helen Bosch at Vista, and she's like, she would be happy to help program and get some ideas and brainstorm on that space, so. I think that would be a wonderful public partner kind of thing, so.
Oh, just a logistical question. Is the basketball court at the grade at the first level or is it at?
The
grade?
basketball court is at main level, so it's about
It is.
6 feet above grade. There's actually a stair that goes out to grade here. And these end stairs go down half a level and go up.
Okay.
Hey, Tom, it's Joe. Just a quick note, as we're talking about cafes, kitchens, things like this. I didn't see on the site plan a place for dumpsters and garbage trucks accessing those dumpsters and how people would get the garbage out. So just something to consider in the future when we look at the site plan again.
Of course, actually, it's funny, that's the biggest issue that we have on every site plan is where's the dumpster gonna go?
Yeah, nobody wants to see it, right?
It's gonna go right where you wanna move the playscape to.
Yeah, I think it's much.
No, it's a good point. We haven't gotten that far yet, but, very fair point, Joe.
Good. I had one last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the entrance, when they come in, you're gonna have like screens or some sort of display to listing kind of having Branford, like which, the gym is this and this facility or this.
Directory and a map.
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
map. Yeah, there you go, directory, I
I
guess.
wasn't sure if we should do that down in the vestibule or when you get up to the main floor. Directly across from Beach and Rec, I thought maybe in this corridor, we would have a directory, so. Maybe we'll reconfigure these openings so that there's a directory in the middle, you come up off the elevator, there's a directory there. I think that's a better spot for it.
Well, that's what I was thinking too, because I mean, you're gonna have a lot of people that are coming, I don't know, people still buy beach passes in person, but they're gonna wanna come in and be able to be navigated to the office or Beach and Rec to purchase, parking passes and stuff, so, and I guess check-in too, right? Are they? Austin, you plan on having like a person staff there to
Yep, here.
kind of check people in and,
So that's up for discussion. I don't know. When we looked at, when youth and family, or Scott did the survey of the youth. Checking in, wasn't a top priority of students to do that. And so like, what would be the reason to check in? Because they keep track of how many people are using the building.
I mean, I guess if it's similar to what you have over here with passes you're handing out, right? I don't know if you plan on doing that there, you know, you.
Yeah, that, we haven't gotten
Checking
to
in the
that,
student.
that point yet, but that's definitely a reason to have people check in.
Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt. A dark blue Subaru rolled out of its parking space. I guess they. I was blocking the front.
I can't wait to see the picture. You better take a picture.
Quick, bring the video outside.
That's gonna give me some mileage.
They appoint this, just to confirm. I'd like to confirm that, so this beach and rec office on this ground floor, this is where the public would come to ask questions, get passes, etc. Is that correct?
Correct, so the beach and rec is located directly next to the main entrance staff, corridor or vestibule atrium. Come in, there would be an office that could be used after hours, and during, that's where the facility director would be, someone would oversee this particular facility, have a window, have an observation of the facility. There would be a pass-through window at the corridor, so people coming to sign up for rec passes, beach and rec passes, would interact with beach and rec, but not have to go into the office, provide some security. Also, lets us use the corridors. The corridors are very big, lets us use those corridors for functional waiting space. And then beach and rec offices with copy space and, work area would be all on the west side of the building, directly adjacent to the entrance.
I'm gonna ask a general question about offices. Is it less expensive to build a wall than to put in a cubicle?
It actually is less expensive to build a wall than to build a cubicle, especially depending on what types of furniture equipment you're buying.
Mhm.
The furniture equipment gives you a little more long-term flexibility, but the reality is we do tenant fit outs all the time. You move walls and move the electrical.
If needed, yeah.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure that that was kind of on the record, so to speak, because I know people are gonna say, why are we building walls? It's just put up some cubicles, and having gone through both types of builds.
so the
they're
benefit,
precisely-
I'm sorry, Ann, the benefit, one of the benefits to the furniture system is in a space like this, which is a historic classroom configuration. You can put the furniture in and it doesn't sort of disrupt the ceiling. But the drawback is there's no acoustic separation whatsoever. So we're kind of anticipating in here and in youth and family services, we would actually hang a ceiling. You'd have walls that go up to the ceiling so that you have privacy, office to office.
Yeah.
Just in those suites.
Okay, I have a general question. About hallways, what sort of regulatory issues do we have to deal with when planning for using the hallways, like putting furniture, putting things in the hallways?
Well, that's a great question. You're not allowed to put anything in the hallways that blocks the egress path unless it's fixed to the floor, so it's a fixed amenity. So I'm not gonna let you do any of that. After the building's built, and whoever's using the building, and I'm not around, you can put what you want in the hallways. And you can deal with the fire marshal,
From a
local
fire-
building official on your own.
It's a temporary thing, so like when we do night in hand and we put all sorts of things, everything, as long as you've got 3 feet an egress and also the capability to see where the exits are.
And then that's why I was asking, because these hallways are so wide,
Mm,
I was wondering.
yeah, I mean,
And
we
that's
may be able to
The
think.
reality is you could have seats for waiting or a bench. But you have to, there's a very detailed calculation regarding egress width. There's a lot of people that will be in this building. So I can't shrink those corridors down dramatically. I can't make them 3 feet wide with equipment, but. You know, you may, if it's a 10-foot wide corridor, you may be able to put 3 feet of furniture in these corridors. Maybe, that's an estimate. Still up to a calculation, but it's a good, really good question.
Hey, Tom, quick question
Yeah.
on, just a general question on office sizes. Does the town have standards for office sizes? I think 173 square feet is a bit large for an office these days. Are those pre-existing walls or?
These are proposed new walls. 173 could be smaller, but if that's, let's say, director's office. 150 to 175 is apropos for that, because you might have a meeting space or a side chair. But we try and furnish all of the offices. In this particular case, there are existing windows, an existing window partitions, so we kind of struggle. If I put this wall on one side of the window versus the other side of the window, it's an office that goes from 150 to 175. So which office gets the extra 25 square feet?
Yeah, I guess
So,
one thing I was also getting at is, I mean, current designs too, you try not to put offices on the outs. I know it's a small space. Offices on the outside block light from coming into the inside. I don't know if there's any designs to see where offices are located to provide as much light into the building as possible rather than just an office.
well, that's a great point, Joe. There's different theories about that, particularly in open office configurations where you have a lot of people working in the open office. You want to get as many people to the exterior of the building as possible. In this case, the reality is there would be one person in the core of the building that needs to interact directly with the public coming to the counter. So in this configuration, it makes more sense to have the fixed offices, the rec supervisors, the people that are going to be doing the programming at the exterior, but we could incorporate borrowed light, which is doors with windows in it or side lights to help bring light into the space.
I think that's great. Yeah, and I just want to make sure we're not sticking to some archaic standards in terms of hierarchical office sizes and things like that. That could come back at us.
Well, if you look at even the design in this building here, the walls itself are a lot of windows. All the way around, so that to try to get as much light during the day in as possible. But you still need good positive light.
In every scheme we pursue, we'll try and bring as much natural light to the activity spaces. I mean, the building has wonderful large windows. It's really not going to be a challenge for us in this project. And even so, in the core of this space, we're adding a clerestory light, and we have the front wall we're proposing is essentially a curtain wall. So that'll just be flooded with afternoon and evening light.
Nice.
On the east side of the building are 2 multifunction community spaces. We're leaving them generally open. We are creating some pass-through doors in that existing wall so that they could be used together. It gives you some flexibility of programming, but also they're directly off of the multifunction space. So you could have interactive, flexibility in programming for those spaces. But those spaces will stay essentially configured the way they are. Storage rooms will stay where they are. And then at the south end of the building, we have community meeting spaces that will stay as multifunction community meeting spaces. And those are surrounding what we refer to as a recital hall. I changed the name of it to recital hall. The recital hall will get restored completely in its existing configuration. We are going to enlarge the stage platform. We're gonna remove the impediments from the stage and we're gonna lower the stage. So right now that stage is pretty high. We're gonna make that more, we're gonna lower the scale of that space, make it a little more intimate space. We're proposing to remove the that viewing room or recording room. I don't think there's a need for that anymore. With new technology, we can have a tiny little camera that will zoom, pan, tilt, and do all of that from remote location. And then we're proposing to open the sidewalls with operable partitions, like a 3-door opening, so it'll hold closed. So that these community rooms can be open to the recital hall to provide flexibility of programming that can allow for additional seating or standing room only. It can allow the side areas to support this either with soft seating or with tables or eating, reception or refreshment areas if necessary. So that will allow this space to take on a whole new character and be more multifunctional. We are going to add curtains in this space so that you could, transit both sides of the stage. But the platform itself is proposed to be extended to the front. And then the storage will be removed from the sides of the stage. There will be a ramp that's in the corridor behind that'll give handicap access to the stage. And then the stairs will remain at the front of the stage. We've considered whether or not we want that platform to have just, cascading steps down, which we can do, or it can have a hard edge and a stair. Couple different options.
Tom, the ticket booth,
Ticket booth.
There's no,
accommodate that at all?
there's no such thing.
At the entrance.
But you said you're taking that out.
No, he's taking out the platform which had the projectors, whatever in it.
The
Right.
projector.
Oh, yeah.
Not the ticket.
Oh, okay.
Well, is that going to be a possible entrance? I know it's not.
Oh, here,
Yeah.
that will remain as an egress. It certainly could be an entrance. We're not prohibiting it from being an entrance. People could enter this way, but we see this as the main entrance of the building now, just depending on, what function, what event is going on. That can be programmed open or closed. Usually what we're seeing in facilities like Branford is that all of the exterior doors of the facility will now be card accessed. So they can be opened or closed at any time of the day or night, and it can be done remotely if necessary. But the interior doors they could all be card access. That gets pretty cost prohibitive, but some of the suites would probably have card access. So that getting into the tenant suite would, you'd know who's coming and going at what time.
So you're.
So for these rooms to the right and left of sort of the main recital hall area, what sort of acoustical considerations are gonna be needed to accommodate that?
Good question. We don't know yet. I don't know what the finishes of this space are going to be. It could potentially be a carpeted space. If we wanted to have less reverberation, we got to see what we're doing at the ceiling and at the walls. Right now, it's a pretty hard space and it's regularly shaped. So, I don't know exactly.
But is the thinking that if those partitions were closed off, that the rooms could be used independently of something
Yes,
going on in the
yes.
hall?
That's the thought process. But if you have a big event going on here, more than likely either it's gonna be used in conjunction or they won't be used, or it'll be used as a quiet space. If you have a small event going on here, practice sessions or small group, then it's likely you could have a louder type function happening adjacent.
You mentioned curtains and things like that. Is that gonna also be happening on the stage in the gym?
I think so, that would be the goal.
Okay,
Do we need both stages?
there are two different capacity levels.
What
So
would the capacity be with those doors open? That looks like. It has quite a bit of
it's not the
capacity.
capacity of the seating, it's the capacity of the stage itself. Even with the build out of the platform, that's a very shallow stage for a theatrical performance. So the stage that's in the gym is more of a standard stage depth for doing most theater. And the one that's in the recital is more of a, you got maybe 2 lines of kids or maybe a orchestra playing, a small orchestra playing. But if you're gonna do any kind of stage performance that isn't for a children level, more of a teenager to adult level, the main stage that would be in the gym would be much more useful. I walked these 2 buildings and I walked in and I had forgotten how small the recital stage is, if we're calling it that. And then I went into the gym and I was like, oh yeah, this is what I'm thinking, because having worked in theater for 40 years, this is.
I guess I'm just considering, like, all the schools have theaters as well, right? So what
Right.
sort of programming do we will need to support here with a big stage
It's,
that wouldn't be supported at the schools?
because this is where revenue. So outside theater companies can use that stage in order to put on their performances. And they don't do that at the high school because there just isn't the capability there. And the auditorium at Polson is not designed for good staging of theater because of
The audience rate, one thing.
the audience and the side stages itself. So this is a potential, it's a community. There's community theater groups all around the shoreline that could potentially rent this for a weekend for revenue, and you'd be able to stage something on there. So that, and it doesn't need to be, huge. But, I do want to try to keep that into consideration as a possible, because the capability to seat 300, or over 150 to 200, 300 people in the gym side, that's a good number for somebody to do a theater. So that, and we don't have to have the cape, the chairs that are bolted to the walls to the thing for a community space. It could be, most people who go to community theater are used to sitting in, fairly pseudo comfortable seats and we'll deal with it. But because of all the activities that go on in the high school and quite honestly in the middle school, there's just not a lot of stage time to be able to use those stages.
Yeah, I guess my head was wondering, do we spend more money on the front one and expand it? Maybe, is there some opportunity to make that a little bigger and not use the back one? Or
Well, there's no height to that stage either, so putting a fly in there and the thing I've liked about the other stage in the gym is it has a drop. You could somebody could drop down below, there's an opening, and it was built to be a stage at the time. So I think we can go down the road and let's continue to think about it, and that might be
The truth
let's
is,
gain money from outside. You know what I mean? That's where you can do fundraising for both of these spaces potentially.
there's more flexibility for this stage to be a performing arts stage. And this stage is more of, as Joe mentioned, the recital stage. That's where we want to lower the platform. It's much more intimate. So, and it gives you some flexibility. What you would do here with a piano or a woodwinds trio, you're not gonna do here. This is more ideal for it. So there really is a nice dynamic there.
An awards dinner. I mean,
Yeah.
so many places.
Oh, yeah,
awards
I
banquets
see a
and
lot,
things
and
like-
I think it's a great idea to be able to open that up, because that was the biggest complaint, that's kind of a small space, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I guess I was in the back of my mind too, have the idea that, like, no one seems to like the high school cafetorium setup that's got bad acoustics and all the other problems you're gonna have probably in a space like that. That, you know, are we just creating something, we're spending money on something that is an inferior setup when we could potentially redirect funds to something that
Yeah,
could be much more well suited to what we need. And it might not be possible, and that's fine. I'm
It's-
just
it's-
trying to
it's more the height,
consider, I'm just trying to consider the options of.
it's more the height of that
I'm sure we
stage
make the
than
right
anything,
spaces.
to light that stage with such a short ceiling, it's very difficult to do that from a lighting design perspective. And to have lighting coming in. And also, you know, once again, that's where it took the people who designed the cafeteria, the cafe, you want to call it, at the high school, did not have the background as far, they were like, oh, well, it's gonna have a stage, and it's gonna have this and that, who cares? And then when you sit there and put a tile on the floor, which is even harsher to the acoustics than even wood, let's face it. And also, you know, it's the entire thing. And I think that if we understand going in that the future, potentially, we want to do something with that, then you can start thinking, well, what are we gonna do for the walls? Maybe we do some nice cutting on the walls, and that's good for the kids who are running into the wall as well, and that dampens that acoustics, you know, that reverb as well, and some things. There's ways to do it, so,
We can learn from past decisions. right?
yes, we can.
Hopefully.
That's,
We can do,
we are an evolved society and being, we should be learning from our.
I
history.
will say that one of the things that makes your Academy Community Center unique is that it, in my opinion, it has a performing arts bent. And a lot of community centers don't necessarily have that. It's more athletics or a pool. You have two spaces that could serve the community arts as well as numerous meeting rooms and the arts and crafts space. So that's unique. And obviously, if I have a choice, you know, this is where, you know, the primary program expenditure is from a square footage standpoint.
yeah, hey, Tom. So as you get through this and you get the scope estimates. I guess, you know, I've heard bleachers, I've heard windows, I guess all the furniture, fixtures and equipment, when you get the scope estimate, how do you break it out so this group can actually see the options and the costs and everything else? How detailed is it? And how do you break it down in terms of FF&E?
Eventually, you'll get a very detailed budget. FF&E comes last, but when you get design development estimates, you're gonna see where the cost is in the project.
But that gives us time if we know we have to go to the private sector and try to raise funds for certain things, that gives us time. You know, we know this in 6 to 9 months, that gives us at least a year to get those funds before, you know, some of the things that need to be installed. To make, say, that theater, you know, that stage more theatrical, we can try to do that outside the scope of the hard budget that we have here.
Yeah.
There's a plan for that. I think we need to push for that. I'm gonna be talking to some public people to try to get that going on the side. Who wants to name a stage? Who wants to name, well, you name rooms and.
Well,
you
the
can
auditorium in Branford's named, right? It's got its name on it.
Yeah, it does.
And I think there's a lot of people who would love to name certain buildings and stages and halls and things like that, and that's donation, that's outside, right? It's not grant money, so we don't have to deduct from our total. It would be in addition, so.
The upper level of the building.
Come on, I want to see the compliment.
Moving us right along.
Yeah, right. So the upper level of the building houses the youth and family services here in yellow. At the lower part is the family services. And in previous schemes, I had taken the majority of this space all for youth services. We added a new core of non-gender or just family
Flexible
bathrooms.
beds,
They're
yep.
flexible bathrooms. But what we think would be a compromise based on the last meeting we had was to move youth services offices here. But leave the multifunction meeting rooms elsewhere and allow this prime square footage of the building, the southwest corner of the building, to remain as community meeting space, and then, of course, the arts and crafts classroom, which we reconfigured so that you could have a storage room or a kiln space in that space. I've reviewed youth or family services with Scott, and the program configuration works for all of their counseling needs and programming needs. I believe he wants to make a couple adjustments. You can see we've created some new openings to the two-story courtyard space so that natural light will get into the core offices of the space. You can also look down into that space from the upper corridor, and you can look down into the gymnasium stage from this viewing area. There will be windows there that won't be an open rail, just because we have some code issues associated with that and acoustic issues. But I think this is a fair compromise, at least from my perspective. And then the penthouse would remain as it is at above this area. We would provide access to it. We would renovate it. It would be a meeting space, but it's not handicap accessible. It's a one space in the building. We can't make handicap accessible without a monstrous financial commitment. So we would clean that up, renovate it, allow it to be functioning space. And we can meet the needs of the ADA by providing similar spaces throughout the building, which are all meeting rooms. We had talked about, at one point, providing a rooftop terrace off of that penthouse space. The problem with that is without accessibility to that space, then there's not equal access because there's no other similar space to the facility. So we stayed away from that.
So that you're widening that staircase, right, to get to that?
We're not changing the staircase. It would stay exactly as it is.
That's a tough staircase.
It is, it's not a space that frankly I'd see being used a lot, but it's an existing asset. And I think we should renovate it, maybe put new handrails in the space, and
Maybe future type of thing to phase 2, 3 down the road, we could do something a little different with it.
So. I'm gonna be the bad guy here. Did we, the space that youth and family services think, does that need to have space, or is that their ideal amount of space?
here,
Yeah,
this is actually less than the.
So what is the-
thing.
I have terrible eyesight, so. This is actually, so that, which part is, beach and rec, which part is,
This is family services here.
yeah,
This is youth services here, and beach and rec is below family services. Beach and rec is at the floor.
wait, so there's actually 3 groups that are.
Well, it's 2 groups. Youth and family services is one group, but
They get 2 separate spaces.
they were split up in the original scheme. Gene, could you skip forward 1 slide? 2 slides.
Want me to go backwards?
No, forward, please. Thank you. 1 more. So this was the original, we lost the floor plan. This was the original configuration of the lower level and the upper floor plan. And you can see that youth services are all like allocated to the east side of the upper level, which is normal. We've reconfigured this so youth services gets, or family service, youth services gets a small sliver of this core so that they can have central access to their tenant space. But in the original configuration, family service or youth services, I apologize, took this entire basement core space. And their offices were in the. I'm gonna call them the bowels of the building, but that's where they were.
The lower level.
Cause lower level, cause I'm biased, but, so what I was proposing is the meeting rooms stay down there. And then the offices move up across the hall to youth and family, so that youth and family services administration is all in the same place, all on the same level. And then the large group meetings can all happen, in the same area remotely.
I just asked for Scott Cochran to join us so that he can speak as well.
Oh.
He's got any items up.
So is there there's a reason they have separate meeting spaces that they can't use? We can't make those meeting spaces open to the public.
So actually, that's not really correct, and
Okay.
I talked to Scott about this. For Scott's programming, he has large group meetings and small group meetings. He could actually use any of the large or small rooms throughout the whole building. He just needs to have access to those, so that's more of a programming issue that he'd work out with Austin, whoever's coordinating access to the building. So those meeting spaces could actually happen on any floor. They could happen in the gymnasium, if depending on the size of the event or
And with
function
the
they have.
activities, yeah.
So really what's essential to him isn't the meeting room space, it's having the office space at the core administrative services. So if you go now back to you can use back arrow. No, locked up.
Oh, there's the mouse.
Other way. Oh, that's interesting. Hold on, right there. So by putting the youth services offices, administrative offices across from here. I felt, well, it's a compromise, we're not taking that space, and that this whole southwest corner of the building remains as communal space. The arts and crafts space stays as it is, and then they can function directly adjacent from each other.
And actually, if you look at U4, which is the new, I'm going off of what was given to us by Bill Stableford. There, what L4 was is 975, and what the current is 800. So they're actually reducing the square footage by 175 square feet.
So this actually is less space. But it is a little more efficient.
It's more functional to their needs, I think.
I'll agree, it's more functional, but again, I'll be the bad guy and I'll question some of the programming standards for office sizes and if they could be shrunken a little bit and create some more common or conference rooms that could be shared. 200 square foot, if they're doing counseling, that's one thing, but 211 square feet for an office is quite large. I don't know what the town standards are, but is there a way to?
So if I can comment, Scott, in the 4 counseling offices, we're shooting to get you 200 square feet because you not only need a desk, but you need a soft seating area. They need the flexibility in that private area to work with families or small groups. That's fairly typical. In this case where it's 211, it's just because the window is there. And I can make it 211 or I can maybe make it 185.
Yeah.
So
And also you've got to recognize that this isn't just kids, potentially kids coming in, sitting down and talking. There's a lot of children, young children, so there's art therapy and there's play therapy. So there's a lot of stuff in these offices. It's not just a desk and a couple of chairs. I used to be the liaison to Youth and Family Services, and
Yeah, I understand that. I just think it would be good to see detailed programming documents for offices. And again, back to one of the other meetings, are these departments giving up their other space in the town offices?
Youth and
So-
Family Services, yes.
So I,
Yeah.
so I'm sorry, and I'm not gonna put my video on because I'm sitting in my truck waiting to go into a baseball game. And obviously riveted to what's going on here. Quite extensive work over years went into us evaluating, talking with consultants, looking at our current programming. There was a lot of work that went into how we thought about our space. So what you're seeing reflected in Tom's projection, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
What you're seeing is actually, all the work that we've done to project how we would use our space and for what purpose is really spread out very nicely in Tom's concept. And I just want to point out that we're a tenant in this building, so this is something that has been included in this project all along. And I've been asked at multiple different points to be open and be flexible about how we conceive of our spaces. And I think I've done that to whatever degree I can. And I think to a degree, I'm asking that people on the building committee do the same. We were promised a little bit more than 6,000 square feet in the building. And that included that lower level. What attracted us to that lower level space was the opportunity for us to control our own group spaces. And what we're giving up in moving those offices to the upper level is control of our own group spaces. That's really that's a big compromise that we're making. And it was one of the major needs that drove us to ask the town to give us more space, because that's a problem we have when we want to do group programming. We are constantly needing to compete with other programs and other things that go on within the town. So it becomes a much greater challenge for us to create new things and plan new things. So what we're doing in this particular idea, this schematic, is we are agreeing that we would be sharing group spaces other than whatever is allotted us on that lower level in order to have our staff situated in offices for what the purpose of their jobs are.
Yep.
So I hope that helps.
It does, Scott. Thank you. I guess I wasn't looking to really pick apart the validity of the space you needed so much as to get the detail and the planning into the
Yep.
record. Because I could see the public saying, when we get down to estimates and really looking at value engineering and stuff, the public saying, well, this is a community center. Why is the bulk of the third
Yeah.
floor taken up by town offices? How much did we spend on that if we didn't get X, Y, and Z? So I think it's
I can
important.
understand.
I think it's important to have that transparency to the committee and to the
Yep.
public.
That's a great point. And we've, if you want proof of all that we've gone through, I've provided documents to Tom, I think to the building committee at some point. I mean, there's documents that go back years in terms of how we've come up with our estimates. So I'm happy to provide that and agree with your point about the transparency. I think the town needs to know, how and why we got here.
Yeah, I also, I mean, to kind of, not to belabor that point, but another concern that's been rattling my head is, as a committee, do other groups come to us and say, why didn't we get space in this building as well? We could use dedicated space. And I think it'd be important for us to understand, why Youth and Family Services is the town has agreed to give them the space. And if another group comes forward and says, we could have used dedicated space, well, you can say, look, this was an agreement that was made between.
Right. And I
these
can
services.
speak to this because I'm also been a member of the capital improvement program since its inception. And since its inception, there was on the plan, the renovation for Youth and Family Services, the next building over. And it was going to be several $100,000 and it just kept getting pushed. And they are now in minimally 4 different buildings, and that's also including some of the people that they pay to do counseling services utilizing their own private offices. And so I think that that leads to non-cohesion and things like that. But the space that they're giving up to, which is right across the way, will be able to be in the future used for other things within the town as well.
Previous committee interviewed every term.
They did, okay.
Yeah.
There's no other demands that are gonna be put on us
Right.
as a group to say, you know, hey,
We made that decision.
And this space allocation was a part of the referendum document.
So in essence, they're lowering it. They may be getting, to me, this is a better proposal than the last time around because you're giving up only 1 community space slot versus the other one was gonna really take over several of those spaces.
now is there any thoughts to the public going through their space to reach those community centers, and should we swap to make all of the yellow together essentially?
We could have done that, but I liked the entrances being directly adjacent. I also liked this is the #1 prime real estate in the building. It is the southwest corner on the 3rd floor. Has exceptional views down the post road. I felt that should remain as the community space or community access space. And that puts it directly adjacent to this arts and crafts room. This stairwell could serve that space for most functions, so I think it maintains, its own area, and because the corridors are so big, I think based on programming and how when the building is programmed, I don't think there's gonna be a large conflict. And you also have to think about when youth and family services are doing the majority of their programming and how that relates to youth or actual community or evening programming. I don't think they're gonna overlap a lot.
One thing I could see,
I think Scott had a question.
If I just would point out, the purposes of the offices also is key in this discussion. I agree with everything that Tom just said. Those offices that are kind of across the hall there on that upper level, that would have been the offices we would have had for our prevention staff on the lower level. And they do a lot of engaging in terms of groups and running programming that includes young people. So their spot that's more out, sort of on their own in that hallway does work programmatically for us. And we are taking caution to and planning for the offices that we feel that are most sensitive for confidentiality purposes and privacy purposes for where they are situated in the building and the access to that. So we've taken that into consideration.
so as you can see, you go through a waiting room. That first is a waiting room below that area. So that is a waiting room so that you're not just going right into somebody's, counseling office. And currently some of these offices that are doing counseling literally have a noise deadening machine outside because they're in the middle of Memorial Town Hall and people are just walking by. And there's 2 or 3 of those offices. The one point on the community side, if you could do a doorway between the wonderful art and the wonderful corner. An opening there.
We can't because this space is actually 40 inches higher than this space. It's a unique split level situation.
Of course it
So
is.
you have to go up this ramp. We're putting a ramp in so that space is handicap accessible.
Okay.
But it's really an exceptional space.
Hmm.
And I think this arts, we're calling it arts and crafts. We'll change the name to arts and crafts. It is the arts and crafts room. There's originally was sinks and stuff in there. Yeah, home ec, I'm sorry, thank you. If this is the spot where we're gonna have a kiln in the building, this is the ideal spot. We can vent it directly through the roof. So I think that's how it would stay.
And the one to the left, the white space, is that a roof? Is that a flat roof?
Oh, that's a flat roof below. So when you stand at these windows are actually up high, they're here.
Mhm.
And you're basically, the roof is like at chin level. So this roof is like right here. So when you look out the windows, you're looking literally at like exhaust fans and stuff, but it's still pretty nice.
Tom, I have a question on the penthouse. I understand it's not accessible. Is that why it's shown as blue and not green?
Good question. It's really green. It should be green. It's community space. There's no reason it can't be
It
community.
would be
space.
good to show it as green.
Yeah,
Hold on, say that again. There's no reason why it can't be community space?
oh, it is community space. It
But
is community space.
I thought the stairs weren't a code and it's not it's not accessible.
It isn't, but it doesn't mean it can't be used. It just means that if we change it or reconfigure it, we have to bring it up to code. So we're just gonna leave it as it is, repaint it, clean it up. Make sure it's enclosed, new windows, and that's it.
And that'll pass,
That'll meet the code requirements,
Okay.
yes.
even though the stairs are.
It's a good idea, though. You might need code, but it's a good idea.
The town may choose to lock that door and not let anyone in there. The town and this committee can choose that be made an ad alternate and just not finished. We have to protect the building asset,
Mhm.
so we have to do the roof, we have to do the windows, we have to make sure there's no water infiltration. At that point, it just makes sense to clean it up and
Where is it in?
Is that above
where
the
is that-
toilet area?
Yeah, where is it above?
it's over here, so you see these ramps here?
Yep.
This stair right here is that stair, so it's essentially over this corridor right here.
So,
We can shade that so you
Right.
can understand it.
so.
I was just wondering if there's an opportunity to turn it into a huge skylight or something, but that costs money too.
Not really, that would be more expensive.
More
It won't-
expensive.
and it won't go down below to the floor below, right? You're like gaining any light.
Well, you can do anything,
You can do anything. Time and money.
Okay,
Yeah.
So I think the floor plans have come a long way. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we've documented the building. We really have a good grasp on the existing conditions. Carolina and Brian have been crawling through the building. We also had a kickoff meeting with our team to go through the site civil work, get that underway. The survey is underway. We're gonna do an assessment of the septic system. We're gonna get water testing done to see if we can support sprinklering the whole building. And our team will be doing walkthroughs this week, the MEP and structural team. Structural engineering is starting to look at this concept to see, okay, what is that going to engage? They actually brought up a really good idea. It was my idea to fill the courtyard, just fill it with stone, but apparently that'll create all sorts of lateral pressure on the walls below, so that will now be built up, like with stud walls, and we'll build the floor in there. So we're underway with those components, and we should be getting a better understanding of where we are. We haven't spent a lot of time on the exterior of the building. Gene, maybe you can skip ahead.
Hold on, Tom, quick question before we get off that.
Yeah,
Promise it'll be a quick one. Thinking of our facilities folks or whoever else, roof access. How is roof access currently designed? Is it exterior, interior?
there's two ways to get through the roof, to the roof. One is through the penthouse. Right, there's a stair up to the penthouse, and then we can get directly out to the roof. And I believe there's a roof hatch over the gym, part of the gym building.
I think it might be above the stage, right?
It's either above the stage or it's in one of the mechanical
Oh,
rooms,
off to the
which are
side.
off the stage.
Yeah.
Where possible for safety reasons, try to make that stair accessible, not ladder accessible.
Okay.
Or we could just extend the elevator one more level, right?
Then we can make a rooftop terrace.
There you
That
go.
would be very cool.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Um,
Need a few more million for that, but other than that.
so, actually, if you skip ahead, I think the last image, one more. This image is good. Oh, that's all we have?
Wow.
Oh, that's interesting. Anyways, so you can see here the mass, I don't know what happened here, I apologize. You can see the massing of the existing building will stay essentially the way it is, it'll be restored. We still envision a glass wall sliver between the two additions and a canopy entrance, and then you can see the clerestory will pop up over that foyer space. So I think it's a simple solution. I think standing against, this outdoor plaza and backlit, it'll be really lovely in the evenings. It'll be super welcoming. There'll be no mistake as to where the entrance of the building is. And I think simplicity is really the strength of the exterior solution. The rest of the building just gets cleaned up, new windows. There is some question about the windows. They weren't replaced that long ago, but the windows that are there really kind of stink. So we're gonna still propose replacing the windows, high efficiency, aluminum clad, wood windows or aluminum windows, and then redoing the exterior masonry. All new roof, the roof will have to be new. And in preliminary discussions with the MEP team, all of the building services have to be new. There's essentially nothing in this building from a mechanical, electrical, or plumbing standpoint that can really be reused.
Yeah.
Right.
Not surprising.
So exterior finishing, one of the big eyesores to me is the multiple types of brick that are on the building. Are we solving that, or do we not have budget for that?
So what we're trying to do is separate the two. So this is the original building right to this line, and there's one type of brick on that building. And then, I don't know, can you go back maybe one slide? All right, here. So from here over is the original building, all original brick. It'll be cleaned up. From this point here over was the addition that was, I don't know, I don't remember when it was put on. But we're trying to isolate that, so they're not next to each other, and it doesn't look as goofy the way you're pointing out. It does look goofy. And on the back side of the building, we're considering a couple different options. We really maybe go forward one slide. On the back side of the building against Academy Street, what we'd like to do is remove the brick in that same sliver because it touches the historic building, and let this portion of the addition stand proud. This is actually quite nice. If you look at this portion of the building, there's these inset relief panels and decorative details. And then in between, we'll clad this with just like a zinc or a metal siding. So it'll be a modern finish. And then the historic building will again stand on its own. This needs a little bit of work. We're just kind of exploring that option, but we think it's a really nice way to let the original building and the addition stand kind of on their own.
So will the windows be different?
The windows will actually be different. This is just the first bite at the apple. Although we want to make the windows different within the existing window openings.
Yeah.
That brings me to my conversation about being diligent from a decision-making standpoint. So we know that we're going to have to do all new mechanical services in this building, which at about $100 to $125 a square foot is going to cost about $6 to $6.5 million. We have to put a new roof on the building, which will be about $500,000. We have to do new windows in the building, which will be about $500,000, so that we're at $7.5 million. We're gonna put a geothermal field, a well field in the building, that's about $1 million. So that's $8.5 million, and we have to do site work upgrades, which are probably anywhere from $500,000 to $750,000. So-
Anything about septic yet?
Well, I'm using rough numbers. Let's throw the septic in there and let's say it's $9 million. That leaves us $4.5 million, I think, based on 13.5 for construction, to renovate about 50,000 square feet of space, which is less than $100 a square foot. So we really are going to have to make, as a committee, I'm telling you ahead of time, we have a lot of things on our wish list. But I'm preparing you, we're going to have to make some hard choices. And it's just unfortunate, in the last 2 years, since this project has materialized, the cost of everything in the construction market has just exploded. So all of these ideas are fantastic. This is what we want to accomplish. What our goals are is to try and do it in a way that's a little bit more cost responsible. So if I can take our original idea about the site and not move the front parking lot, but still accomplish the patio on the long side, then I think we can save a pretty good chunk of money, maybe a couple $100,000 or $250,000. And all of that adds up to being able to potentially put the money elsewhere. It's our job to give you the information about what all of those things cost. And then you as a committee, we can work together to try and, try and bring this all together. I think originally we anticipated that, I think there was some anticipation that our budget was going to be challenged and that we would be able to use some of the grant monies to augment the facility without going back to a referendum. That's not possible. So we have to be diligent.
But I think if we get the numbers, we can then go to the public and start trying to raise funds that'll add, it may not be all of it, but at least we can start getting some hits there. The other thing I'd like to say is we have a lot of talented artists and muralists. Keep that in mind for both interior stuff and exterior. We've got somebody who literally paints murals on the outside of buildings for a living that lives in town that we could probably
That might
twist
be
an
a
arm to help.
Pretty neat idea.
I'll show you some looks and all, but I think that we could probably, get him to do some things for us there. So we do have quite a few, very talented and so my thought is like, the interior finishes, even if we get some good base walls and allow different groups to do their thing, so that we're, it is a community center, so I don't think we need to have, it be pristine looking tiling and this and that and things like that. I think that we can utilize people that live in town to help us.
Provide the canvas for that.
Provide a canvas for them and let that, and maybe it's like, every year this group gets to repaint a mural in one area and things like that, so it becomes a community project.
Well, this has been great. The information, the feedback you've given about all the different spaces is awesome. It gives us a lot to chew on in the next 5 days. And hopefully we can churn this around and have more to talk about on Monday.
Can you share this with us?
Absolutely. So the digital file, Jean has it.
Okay.
She can share that.
It'd be good between now and next week to, we can look at it in detail on our own and, provide more comments potentially.
I also brought some hard copies.
Okay.
So if someone wants to take hard copy home.
So what's your next step then?
My next step is to just keep moving forward. I'm gonna take all the feedback we received this evening, try and make those adjustments to the design. Some are easy, some are not, but keep, adjusting the design to reflect those ideas. In the same time frame, I have my MEP team coming to walk the building Monday, Friday. And then we're working on, site civil coordination. I've got all my proposals and contracts in place for the civil engineering and the septic evaluation. There's some stuff that will be coming to the building committee Monday night. Proposals for geotechnical work and proposals for the water testing, stuff that's outside my contract, but we just need to get approval to move forward on it. But that's not a part of this agenda, that's just gonna be there Monday night. So, I mean, we're moving, the machine is rolling, but we're gonna try and spend the next week to upgrade the design and, maybe start looking at some things that you didn't see this evening. If we can do some interior elevations, start looking, I won't have finished concepts in place. But even if we can incorporate some of this, then the rest of the committee can, see the whole kit caboodle. And actually, it would be good if the committee could see this. The rest of the committee members who couldn't be here tonight can have access to this. I don't know how.
Joe's the only one who missed it.
Oh, that's it?
Yep.
Oh, great.
Not bad for us.
The two Joe.
Two Joe.
Joe's
Oh,
online.
Joe's online.
Joe is on the.
I'm online.
He's still here.
You still want a copy?
Yeah.
Oh, you Neil.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean, sorry.
All right, great. Thanks. Right, so we have it.
So, well, thanks.
Yeah, appreciate your efforts.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep, and we'll have to
Thank you, Tom.
try to streamline, for Monday, this was great spending so much time going through the detail, but we'll have to figure out, we can't. Every meeting, so we'll have to try to break this up somehow. Maybe piece it together somehow. Yeah, something like that.
This was very helpful, though. I mean, I think just going through and talking about all of the potential spaces and usage, I think. When, community space 1, 2, 3, 4 is a nice thing, and when we have to say art or crafts or something like that, that means that there may be things other than. Like you said, the kiln and things like that. That's why that particular piece is there, so.
And what we heard,
But I think we want to start listing potential uses for each of the areas too, so that we can say, okay, this is, coming off of the report.
right. Now we can take this and compare it to the report and make some, probably more comments. I
Right.
mean, the one thing we learned by reaching out to a bunch of those community centers, we were doing our research, was that like flexibility, these things evolve, right? 10 years from now, we may not want this room and to leave it kind of open and make it multi-purpose now. Maybe it has a purpose 10 years from now, so.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
The real strength of the Lamarad study, I'm calling it, the gentleman who put the programming document together, Bill, not Bill Stableford, no, who put that document? John
John Lamoran,
Lamarand,
yes.
Lamarand, I'm sorry, excuse me, John, I apologize. That, they identify each space and what programs might go in there. So for instance, if they say, this might be a fitness room and a strength structure fitness room, well, we might want to have a ballet bar and mirrored wall in that space.
Right.
So those are the things we'll try and coordinate. We'll look through that program over this week, make some notes about what elements need to be in each room and put those on the plan. So it sort of consolidates that document with the plan.
That makes a lot of sense,
Yeah, absolutely.
especially when you're going to the public and showing these, so. Awesome. Anything else?
Great,
Good. Thank you very much for your time, everybody. I guess
Thank you.
we adjourn the meeting. How do we do that?
Hearing no objections.
Okay, hearing no objections, meeting's adjourned.
Thanks.
See you on Monday.
Bye all.
Take care, Joe.